Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be working on this vintage Athearn Santa Fe GP9 or GP7 locomotive. This was donated to the channel many months ago from North Florida Rail Productions, and if I recall correctly, the reason it didn't run was because it was seized or because it wasn't getting power. I can't remember which, but in any case, it doesn't seem to run. If we look on the bottom here, you can see this is an older Athearn locomotive. I believe it was before their blue box era. And these are slightly less reliable than the blue box locomotives, but they're still pretty good. This one was probably made in the late 50s or early 60s. I'm not 100% sure, but in any case, it being an Athearn, I think it's got a pretty good chance of riding the rails once again. So we'll take it over the track. We'll try to get a better idea of what the problems are, and then we'll go from there and see if we can get this locomotive running once again. Let's begin. So let's try to see if we can get a bit of a better idea of what's going on with this locomotive. We'll give it 12 volts. And right off the bat, you can see we have a working headlight. And we have moderate current draw, so not only is the light getting power, but the motor is too. So I'm going to shut the power down because we might end up burning up the motor if we do that for too long. Right, you can even hear the motor humming. So the motor's getting power, so this seems to be an issue of the drive being seized. That can be due to any number of reasons, but at least we know what's going on with it. Now let's see if we can figure out why. I tell you, doing a little test like that can reveal so much about any engine you're working on, because if you hear the motors humming or you see the lights on, you know power is getting into the drive to some extent. But this one is clearly seized, probably due to old lubricant or something like that, but we'll have to have a look. Right off the bat, we've got this jumper wire. This is a little bit weird because it's not connected to anything, even though the light and motor were both working, so that's already a bit strange. Somebody's clearly been in here once. It might have had a rear light at one point. I'm not 100% sure. Let's try turning this over. Surprisingly, the drive is turning over fine. That is so strange. That is not at all what I expected. Well, I guess we could try applying power directly to the motor and see if we can turn it manually. That might just get it going again, but either way, something's clearly not quite right. So we'll see if we can get this thing to turn over just by cranking the motor manually while giving it power. I've also just noticed there's this lead right here, which looks like it should be attached to something, but everything's getting power, which is the weird part. So we'll hook one wire up to ground, and then another wire up to this. And you can see it actually is turning over a little, but it is super low on power. Like you can see, I'm giving it full power, which is about 16 volts, and it's not going very fast. So this engine does, yeah, it's starting to power through it a little bit. But yeah, this engine does work. The problem is just that the drive is not turning very efficiently, and it does seem a little bit stiff. So really, I think what this is a matter of is just cleaning the locomotive out a little bit. These older Athearn drives tend to be a little bit more tricky to work on, so we'll see what I can do here. But definitely, I haven't had quite as much experience working on this style, and I think they all also are just a little bit more of a challenge. I think to start off, we'll remove the motor just so that we can really get in there and service it properly. I find these older motors are just a lot weaker than what came many years later. One of these pulls out, and then I think you can actually remove this whole plate right here, which will make servicing the commutator quite a bit easier. Let's do that, that way we can get the brushes out. And just like that, we are now inside. The commutator actually looks to be in very good shape. I was not expecting that. So we're just gonna take this little pick right here. A lot of people have been asking where you can buy these. I think you can pretty much get them at any pharmacy. It's just like a toothpick. And you could use a wooden toothpick. You might wanna cut the end down a little bit just so it fit between the gaps on the commutator, but just as long as you're using something which is softer than the metal, you should be okay. What you want to avoid is just accidentally scratching this, because that's no good for it. But this should be all right. And then I'll get a fiberglass pencil and we'll just properly polish this thing up. But I don't think the motor is the problem in this case. Everything looks very good here so far. Well, the motor seems to be in relatively good condition. Unfortunately, you can see this spins quite freely, which is actually not a great sign. It means that the earth magnet is pretty weak. It should be a little bit harder to turn, but in any case, it should be good. You really wouldn't expect the magnets to be good considering this engine is probably over 60 years old. Now, on to the rest of the drive. This is where things might get a little more interesting. You know what? Just trying to turn this, I can already tell there's definitely something not quite right there. So anyways, let's try to open this thing up. All right, well, there we have it. The drive is all apart. I can't say this is exactly what I was hoping to see. You know, it's good that the whole drive is clean. But if there was a lot of dust and hair and old lubricant in here, it would be very clear as to why it wasn't turning quite right. It could just be because it's dry, you know, it doesn't have enough oil in it. So we'll clean up all the parts just in case, and hopefully just putting it all back together with some fresh lubricant will fix whatever's going on with this locomotive. But yeah, this was not as definitive as I was hoping to see. Just check out the amount of grime that's on this part. This is definitely where there could be an electrical problem, because this actually makes contact with the frame to deliver power. And I'm pretty sure the reason this wire is loose is because it's actually supposed to be between these two plates. So there definitely were some electrical issues inside this thing, which we'll hopefully be able to fix. But yeah, I'm gonna work on cleaning up this old gearbox first. Well, I think at this point we can pretty much start reassembling the whole gearbox. It should be pretty simple. Let's try to get everything back into the right place. Some of these gears might have to be positioned a certain way to work properly, so as we go along here, I'll just be kind of testing everything out, and I think that that was correct, so that should be all right now. I'll throw some oil in all of this, obviously, and then we'll try to just get all the metal bits back in. Let's put a bit here, some for the bearings. This is a very unusual gear for a locomotive like this. I haven't seen too many like that. Alright, well, now that we've got one truck all cleaned up and reassembled, I think we'll try to tackle the other here. I suspect it's going to be similar, but we better check in on it just to be sure. Anyways, let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's pretty much spotless. Yeah, I think I'm just going to throw some fresh lubricant in this one. I mean, if there was visible oil in this, I'd be a little bit more concerned, and cleaning it would be important, but I think in this case the problem is just that it doesn't have any oil. So put some fresh lubricant, I'll throw some grease on the worm gears there, and we'll put the whole thing back together. And I have a feeling that might just be enough to get this engine running once again. Alright, well, I think at this point we can go ahead and reinstall the motor here. believe it went that way. Just quickly kind of tied up this wire, and hopefully it won't make any reference to ground, because that will obviously cause a short circuit. I'm pretty sure, just like this light right here, it probably was a power source at one point, or it might have connected there, but I don't think it matters too much. So anyways, with that, I think we'll basically finish up the repair, reinstall this coupler right here, and then I think once we put the shell back on, the engine's going to be ready to go again. That seems fine. Alright, let's take it over to the track and see what she does. I'm really hoping our efforts here will have paid off. You know, that motor didn't seem particularly strong, but hopefully just throwing some fresh oil in this thing will have fixed it. Okay, that's a good sign. She's going. Yeah, I think we've got a runner. Current draw is kind of high, but I'll let it run a little bit and hopefully it will break in. You know, this thing might have been sitting for 20 plus years, who knows. And I think it's starting to speed up just a little bit. Yeah, current draw is starting to drop. That's a good sign. I mean, I wouldn't call it healthy, but it's not bad. Well, I let this thing break in for about 10 minutes or so, and I've got to say I think it is running a little bit better. And the current draw, you know, it's kind of high, but for an engine of its age, it's right where it should be. So overall, I'm very happy with how this thing turned out. Now, why don't we try to see if it can pull some cars? I don't expect anything too remarkable, but it might be able to pull a few. All right, well, we've got this thing set up with an 8-car consist. Let's see if it can handle that. No problems, just check it out. That is awesome. Well, folks, I think that's going to be about it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. I am absolutely thrilled with how this thing turned out. I just can't believe how well it's running, especially considering, you know, it's definitely got kind of a tired motor. So for what it is, it's very, very good. Before I finish this video off, though, I just want to say thanks to North Florida Productions for sending this locomotive in. It was very generous of them. But with that, I think I'd like to thank you all so much for watching.